I learned to stop hoping the year my husband died. Hope, I'd discovered, was a luxury women like me couldn't afford. The frost on my blanket was thick that October morning. 3 weeks I'd been in these mountains. 3 weeks since I'd fled town with nothing but what I could carry. 3 weeks since I'd spoken aloud. When I tried my voice that morning, checking the sound of it, the words came out like a stranger's. My camp was pitiful. I knew it even then. Canvas stretched between 2 pines, sagging in the middle where rain pooled. A fire ring made of river stones I'd stacked poorly. They'd tumbled twice already. 1 cooking pot, 1 tin plate, 1 cup. A snare line I didn't know how to check without ruining whatever might be caught there. The smell of wet pine filled everything. My joints ached from sleeping on cold ground. My breath clouded in the air as I worked to start a fire with damp wood. I burned my fingers on the 3rd try, cursed, tried again. The coffee grounds were nearly gone. I'd been rationing them like gold dust, but even rationing runs out. I used to make coffee for 2. Now I counted grounds. Funny how fast you fall. The coffee smell, when it finally came, brought Tom's face with it. The way he'd lean against the feed store counter, waiting for his morning cup. How he'd forget things: his hat, his gloves, that lamp, always forgetting something. I pushed the memory away hard, pushed it down where all the other memories lived, the ones I couldn't afford to touch. The fire that took him, that's what they called it in town. The fire that took Tom Coleman and burned Miller's feed store to the ground. They needed someone to blame. Grief does that to people, makes them need answers, even wrong ones. Mrs. Henderson saw me leaving the store that evening. I'd gone back for Tom's lamp, the one he'd forgotten again. She saw me carrying it out, saw the glow through the windows. Minutes later, flames. Orange and hungry and unstoppable. By morning, whispers. By noon, accusations. By evening, the word murderer hissed at me in the street. I had nothing. No money for a lawyer. No family to defend me. No proof except my word against their certainty that someone had to pay. So I ran. Not fled, ran. Like a criminal. Like the guilty thing they named me. I wore Tom's coat over my dress. It used to smell like him tobacco and wood smoke and the bay rum he used on Sundays. Now it just smelled like my fierce sweat and pine sap. When had that changed? I couldn't remember. I checked my supplies that morning, counting what was left. Maybe a week of flour if I stretched it. No meat, 3 matches. Should have brought more. Should have planned better. Should have stayed and fought. The shoulds were heavy as stones. I came here once with Tom. Before, he'd shown me the high meadows, said they were the prettiest place on earth. We'd laughed, made love under the stars. He'd never mentioned how lonesome pretty could be. I saw the boot prints near my camp just after noon. Fresh ones. Not mine. Someone knew I was here. My heart stopped. I grabbed the skinning knife with hands that shook, waited for darkness to bring whoever was hunting me. I was ruining the rabbit when he found me. The pelt was torn. The meat wasted from my clumsy knife work. I'd caught it in the snare by pure luck, not skill. And now I was butchering the butchering. My hands were bloody. My patience was gone. I was muttering to myself the first words I'd spoken in days when I felt eyes on my back. I looked up. He sat his horse at the tree line like he'd been carved there. Buckskin clothing worn soft with use. Rifle across his saddle. Face weathered like old leather. Impossible to age. 40. Maybe older. His eyes were the color of winter sky. My mind raced through possibilities. Bounty hunter, town deputy, drifter who'd seen a woman alone and thought easy prey. I gripped the skinning knife tighter, though we both knew it wouldn't help. The blood on it was rabbit blood, but my hands shook like it was something worse. He didn't speak, just studied my camp with those pale eyes, reading it like a language I didn't know. The collapsed canvas lean-to I'd tried to repair. The smoking fire that wouldn't draw right. The mangled rabbit carcass. Me. Wild-haired and desperate. Holding a knife like I knew what to do with it. I expected questions, expected demands. Expected him to ask who I was, what I'd done, why a woman was alone in high country with winter coming. The silence stretched out between us, broken only by his horse-shifting weight. He dismounted, slow, hands visible, tied his horse to a pine branch. I stepped back. He noticed, but didn't react. Just moved to his saddlebag and pulled out a rabbit properly dressed. Pelt perfect, ready to cook. He set it on a flat rock near my fire ring. "You're gonna freeze when the real cold comes." His voice was rough from disuse, not cruel, just factual, like commenting on weather. I found my voice. It came out too high, too shrill. "I'm fine. I don't need help. I want to be left alone." He ignored every word. Instead, he pointed northeast. "Sweetwater Spring is up that draw, maybe half a mile. That runoff you're using will give you the flux by week's end." He mounted up again, settled into his saddle. "I'll be back." Then he rode away. Just like that. Before I could refuse the rabbit, before I could demand answers. Before I could do anything but stand there holding my ruined catch and staring at his perfect one. I waited for him to ask who I was, what I'd done. Why a woman was alone in mountains she clearly didn't know how to survive. He never asked. Somehow that was worse than questions. Questions I could have refused to answer. His silence just sat there, patient and knowing. The rabbit mocked me all afternoon. Perfect skinning job. Clean cuts. Everything my attempt wasn't. I wanted to throw it in the creek. Wanted to prove I didn't need his charity. But hunger, and pride hunger, won. It always does. That night I cooked his rabbit. Best meal I'd had in weeks. The meat was tender, properly prepared, seasoned with herbs I didn't recognize. I ate slowly, trying to make it last, hating that it was good, hating that my body was grateful for it, hating that I kept watching the tree line, wondering if he'd come back, hating more that part of me hoped he would. He came back 3 days later, just after dawn. I heard him before I saw him. He approached from upwind, giving me warning. I realized later that was deliberate. A man who moved that quiet through mountains could have surprised me easy if he'd wanted. He brought elk meat wrapped in canvas, maybe 10 pounds of it. Didn't ask permission, just proceeded to show me how to smoke it. Cut it into strips, built a proper smoking rack from green willow, arranged the meat just so. I watched, torn between gratitude and resentment. My jaw was tight, my hands clenched. I didn't want to need this. He worked in silence when he was done. He pointed at the clouds building west. "Storm coming. 2 days, maybe 3. You'll want more firewood." Then he left again. A pattern established itself through October. He came every few days, never staying long. Taught through demonstration, not explanation, how to read weather in the way clouds stacked. Which plants were safe to eat and which would make me sick. How to bank a fire so it lasted through the night instead of dying to ash. He never tested my knowledge, never asked if I understood, just showed me and left, trusting I was smart enough to learn or fool enough to die. Either way, my choice. I started anticipating his visits, hated myself for it. Would catch myself listening for hoofbeats, watching the tree line. I was supposed to be alone. That was the whole point of running this far. Alone was safe. Alone meant no one could hurt me. But alone was also cold and hungry and terrified. The first big snow came the first week of November. Early for snow that heavy. It started at midnight wet. Thick flakes that stuck to everything. I woke to canvas collapsing on my head, the weight of it suffocating. Scrambled out in darkness, trying to save my supplies, my blankets, everything getting soaked. I was on my hands and knees in the snow, cursing and crying and trying to salvage what I could. When he appeared, he must have been watching the weather, known the storm was coming. Must have ridden up in darkness to check on me. He didn't say I told you so. Didn't say anything. Just started building. I was useless. Didn't know how to help. So I stood there shivering while he worked. He built a proper frame from logs, not canvas and hope. Knew exactly how to angle the roof so snow would slide off. Where to place it so the morning sun would warm the entrance. How to construct walls that would hold against wind. He worked through the night. I tried to help once, handed him the wrong tool. He took it without comment, set it aside, picked up what he actually needed. That small patience, that absence of frustration almost broke me. By dawn, I had a real shelter. Not a lean-to, a cabin frame. At least, walls and a roof that wouldn't collapse. A door opening that faced east. He stood back, checking his work. Then he finally spoke more than weather observations. Winter's coming hard. You can stay stubborn and die, or you can let me build you a proper shelter and teach you to survive up here. Your choice. That word choice hit different. He wasn't rescuing me. Wasn't saving the poor, helpless woman. He was offering terms. Partnership. Maybe, or just basic human decency. But he was giving me the choice. I looked at the snow still falling, at my pathetic pile of supplies getting buried. At winter coming like a freight train I couldn't stop. I was so tired, so cold, so scared, and so damn tired of carrying everything alone. Just survival. I told him. My voice came out steadier than I felt. I don't need charity or conversation. He nodded once. Wasn't offering either. I'll be back tomorrow with lumber. I should have said no. Should have packed up and moved deeper into the mountains where no one could find me. But I looked at reality at winter, and hunger, and my own ignorance, and I chose living over pride. He never asked my name. I never asked his. It felt safer that way. Names make things real. Make people into stories. We didn't need stories, just survival. I watched him ride away and realized I'd agreed to let a stranger build me a cabin. But he wasn't a stranger anymore. Was he? He was the man who knew I was running from something and didn't care what. November turned the mountains into something both beautiful and brutal. We built the cabin log by log, day by day. He brought timber he'd cut at lower elevation, tools that made the work possible, knowledge I didn't have. I learned the rhythm of building. Measure twice, cut once, fit each log tight against the last. Check the level, adjust, check again. My hands remembered competence I'd forgotten I had. Tom and I had built things together, shelves for the house, a chicken coop, repairs on the store. My body knew how to work alongside someone. It just had to remember. The mountain man moved like someone who'd built alone for years. Self-sufficient. Every motion economical, no wasted effort. But he adjusted to having a partner without making me feel useless. Showed me what to do. Then let me do it. Corrected mistakes without comment. Just demonstrated better. We worked mostly in silence. Hand me that axe. Hold this steady. Break for coffee. The words were functional. Necessary, Nothing extra, but I started noticing things in the silence. The way he always approached from upwind, so I'd hear him coming, never surprising me, never making me startle. The extra firewood he stacked beyond what we needed for building, knowing I'd need it later. How he demonstrated twice, 3 times if needed, never showing impatience when I made mistakes. Small kindnesses embedded in practicality. I noticed his hands shook sometimes, especially toward evening. Barely visible, but there. The way sudden sounds made him flinch, a branch cracking, a bird taking flight. How he preferred sleeping outside near my fire rather than riding back to wherever he came from. A story there. Ghosts there. We were both hiding, just in different ways. I wondered when I'd started listening for his horse. When had his silence become familiar instead of threatening? When had I begun to miss it, the 3 days he didn't come? The questions sat in my mind like stones I couldn't stop turning over. One morning I realized I'd set out 2 tin plates instead of eating from the pot. Stopped mid-motion, staring at them. When had that happened? When had I started serving, instead of just surviving? The word we had appeared in my thoughts without permission. We need more nails. We should finish the roof before the next snow. We. Not I. We. I started making extra cornbread without asking if he wanted any. Just left it out. Still warm. He'd eat it without comment, but bring better coffee the next day. This dance of unnamed giving. Not friendship. Not yet. Something else. Something safer than friendship, but less lonely than alone. The cabin took shape. Walls rose. Roof went on. Windows. Real windows with oiled paper that let light through. I watched it become real and felt something I'd forbidden myself. Hope. That I might survive winter. That I might survive? Period. He moved like someone who'd seen too much. I recognized it because I moved the same way, now careful, ready to bolt, never quite settling. We were both animals who'd learned not to trust. Maybe that's why we could work together. We understood the wariness. One afternoon in late November, he was showing me how to chink the gaps between logs with moss and clay. Our hands worked close together. His guiding mine. I felt the scars on his palms. Thick and old, felt the tremor that lived in his fingers. He didn't pull away when I noticed. And I didn't ask. We just kept working. Storm tonight, he said, checking the sky. Big one. The roof ready. We'll find out. That we again. Coming from him this time? I glanced at his face, but it revealed nothing. Just the weathered landscape I'd grown used to. Unreadable, except in small kindnesses I was learning to see. The storm came as promised. Wind that shook the new walls, snow that piled high, but the roof held. The cabin stood. We sat inside by firelight, him on one side, me on the other, and listened to the wind howl. For the first time in months, I felt safe, not just alive. Safe. Thank you, I said. The first real words between us that weren't about work. For this. For teaching me. He looked up from the knife he was sharpening, studied me with those winter sky eyes. You're learning. That's all that matters. But it wasn't all that mattered. We both knew it. Something else was happening here. Log by log. Silence by silence. I just didn't know what to call it yet. December came with cold that made November feel like practice. We were snowed in for 3 days straight. The storm so thick I couldn't see 20 feet. He couldn't ride down even if he wanted to. Stuck together in the small cabin with nowhere to go and nothing to do but exist in the same space. We'd never been close like this for so long. outside, working. We had tasks to focus on. Inside, the silence that worked under open sky felt heavy, dense with all the questions we hadn't asked. I cooked. He repaired tools. We navigated the small space like dancers, careful not to touch. But proximity reveals things. I noticed the scars on his hands weren't just work scars. Some were too straight, too deliberate. Noticed how he held himself tight, like I did. The weight we were both carrying showed in the small spaces. The first evening passed in near silence. The second was harder. By the third evening, the unasked questions sat between us like a physical thing. The fire crackled. Wind howled. Inside was warm and safe and suffocating with words neither of us had spoken. He finally broke. "You gonna tell me why you're up here?" I could have refused. Could have kept my walls up, kept the distance safe. But 3 months of his patient not asking had built something. Trust. Maybe. Or just exhaustion with secrets. I told him about Tom, about the feed store fire, how I'd gone back for the lamp. Tom had forgotten he was always forgetting something. How Mrs. Henderson saw me leaving with it, saw the glow of fire through the windows minutes later. How her grief needed a target, and I was convenient. They said I killed him for the insurance money. My voice stayed steady. I'd learned that trick, keep the voice level. Don't let it crack. Said I wanted rid of my husband. They had no proof, just timing and a widow who couldn't explain why she was there. I had no money for a lawyer, no family to defend me. Just my word against a whole town's need for someone to blame. I described packing in darkness, walking out at dawn, the 20 miles to high country, carrying everything I owned. How I'd thought I was choosing survival, but maybe I was just choosing slow death in a prettier place. I ran because staying meant hanging. I looked at my hands. Still had blood under my nails from the rabbit I'd caught yesterday. Didn't matter if I was innocent. Matters what they believe. I waited for his response. For doubt. For questions. For that shift in the eyes that meant he was calculating whether I was telling truth. Everyone asks eventually, even when they pretend not to. Everyone wonders. He was quiet so long I thought maybe he was doubting after all. Then, shame's a heavy load to carry alone. I'll shoulder some if you'll let me. Simple words, sincere, devastating. I hadn't said Tom's name aloud since I fled. It hurt coming out, like pulling barbed wire from a wound. But also relief. Someone else knew now. I wasn't alone with it anymore. The story wasn't just mine anymore. He held part of it now. If you'll let me. Those words cracked something. He wasn't demanding, wasn't assuming, just offering. When was the last time someone gave me a choice instead of a judgment fair trade? I figured, my truth for his. What about you? I asked. Your hands, the way you startle. Why you're up here instead of down there. His jaw tightened. For a moment, I thought he'd refuse. Then he told me about the war. Not details, just enough. Things done that couldn't be undone. Things witnessed that wouldn't stop replaying. How town felt too loud afterward. Too full of people who expected him to be who he was before. How he wasn't that person anymore, and didn't know how to explain the difference. Came up here because the mountains don't expect anything, he said. Don't judge. Don't ask you to be something you're not. We're both running, I said, understanding settling over me like snow. Difference is, you're running from something you didn't do. I'm running from things I did. He looked at me across the fire. Your conscience is clearer than mine. I realized then I wasn't alone in exile. We were refugees, both, just from different wars. And somehow that made it easier. We weren't victim and rescuer. We were two people who understood what it meant to carry weight no one else could see. That night, I slept easier than I had in months. Not because the storm had passed, it hadn't. Because I'd spoken truth and survived it. Because someone had listened without judging. Because shame's lighter when shared, just like he said. Late February brought a different kind of storm. Not snow, a man. I was checking snares when I heard the horse, strange rider. My stomach dropped. Had they found me? Had someone from town tracked me here? I ran back to the cabin, my heart hammering. The drifter was already there. Rough-looking man, maybe 30, with eyes that moved too fast. He'd seen smoke from the valley. He said, thought he'd investigate. But the way he looked at my clothes, drying on the line, at the cabin, at me, he was calculating, weighing what he could take. Nice setup you got here. He dismounted without invitation. Woman alone must get lonely. I'm not alone. The lie came fast. My husband's hunting. Don't see no tracks but yours. He smiled, teeth stained, dark. Don't smell no man here either. Just you. He moved toward me. I backed toward the cabin, toward where the rifle hung inside. He was faster. Blocked the door. Started talking about how a woman up here probably had reasons to hide. How he wouldn't judge. How maybe they could work something out. The threat in his words was clear as creek water. I saw John before the drifter did. Saw him emerge from the tree line, moving silent as a ghost. Saw something wake in his face that I'd never seen before, something from the war. Something that knew how to kill and didn't mind. His hand moved to his rifle. I saw it in his eyes. He'd shoot, would kill this man to protect me, and it would cost him. Would bring back whatever ghosts he'd been running from. Would undo whatever peace he'd built up here. I stepped forward before John could reach his weapon, used my voice instead. This is my husband. I put authority. I didn't feel into the words. Others know we're here. Touch me, and they'll find you. Hang you. We're not as alone as you think. The drifter looked between us. John had gone still, but the threat in him was visible now, coiled, waiting. The drifter's calculation shifted. Maybe it was the lie. Maybe it was the truth of violence in John's eyes. Either way, he backed toward his horse, just being friendly. He muttered, didn't mean nothing. Ride out, I said. Don't come back. He left. We watched until he disappeared into the trees. Until the sound of hoofbeats faded, I was shaking. John hadn't moved, still watching the direction the drifter had gone. He won't come back, I said. I scared him off. John looked at me then. Really looked. You called me your husband. The lie had come so easy. Too easy. Seemed smarter than explaining the truth. Sarah. My name. He so rarely used it. You protected me. I realized it was true. I'd stepped between him and violence. Not because I thought he couldn't handle it, because I didn't want him to have to. Didn't want him to carry more weight. You'd do the same, I said. I would? He came closer. We stood in the clearing, snow melting around us, spring coming, whether we were ready or not. But you did it first. Something changed between us in that moment. I'd called this our place, called him my husband. Realized I'd fight to protect him the way he'd fight to protect me. This wasn't just survival anymore. Wasn't just two people tolerating proximity. This was something else, something I wasn't ready to name. That night he slept inside instead of by the fire. Didn't ask permission, just unrolled his bedding on the opposite side of the cabin. I didn't tell him to leave. We lay in darkness on opposite walls, and I realized the distance between us was shrinking, had been shrinking for months, log by log, silence by silence. I wondered what would happen when it closed completely. Wondered if I was brave enough to find out. March came with a thaw that felt like a question. The snow melted enough for travel. Passes opened. For the first time in months, I could leave if I wanted. Go deeper into wilderness. Stay lost forever. The thought was both relief and prison. I started organizing supplies without planning it consciously, taking stock, calculating how far I could go with what I had, away from the town that blamed me, away from the risk of being found, away from everything, including him. But something had changed in me. The woman who fled town in October was broken, desperate, running on fear. This woman had rebuilt a shelter, survived winter, faced a threat. This woman had calluses and competence, had someone who knew her truth and stayed. Was hiding still survival? Or was it just slow dying with better scenery? I packed a saddlebag anyway. Told myself I was just being prepared, but I knew the lie. I was testing the idea, seeing if I could still run. He found me at dawn with the bag half full. Didn't say anything, just stood in the cabin doorway, watching. His face revealed nothing. But his presence asked the question I was asking myself. I'm thinking about going further up. The words sounded hollow even to me. Staying lost? He was quiet so long, I thought he wouldn't respond. Then you can hide the rest of your life, or you can live it. Your choice. It's safe up here. Safe from what? He came inside, sat across from me. The town can't hurt you anymore. Only you can hurt yourself now. By choosing fear over living. I'm not afraid. The lie tasted bitter. Yes, you are. His eyes were steady. So am I. But running forever gets lonely. Even when you're running from something that wasn't your fault. I looked at him. Really looked. Saw the man who'd built me shelter. Taught me survival. Shared his ghosts. Saw the space we'd created together. This life we'd made log by log. Saw what I'd be leaving. What will you do? I asked. If I go, don't know. He was quiet. But if you decide to stop running to go back down and face them, I'd ride with you. Facing them alone is impossible. Together. Maybe it's just hard. Together. That word again. Like we'd already made promises we hadn't spoken. Like every shared coffee, every comfortable silence. Every moment building side by side had been a promise accumulating. Why would you do that? My voice cracked. You don't owe me anything. Maybe I need to stop running too. He looked at his hands. Your demons are easier to face than mine. Practice. We sat close. Closer than we'd ever sat. I could see the gray in his beard, the lines around his eyes. Could see the man under the mountain man. Could see John. Not just the stranger who'd found me. I realized I wasn't running from them anymore. I was running from this. From feeling again. From wanting something. From the terrifying possibility that I could have a life instead of just survival. If I stayed hidden, I stayed safe. But safe from what the town couldn't hurt me up here. Only fear could. Only choosing walls over windows, alone over together, hiding over living. Tom wouldn't have wanted this for me. Wouldn't have wanted me frozen in his coat. carrying his ghost, refusing to move forward because moving forward felt like betrayal. "I'm scared," I said. First time I'd admitted it out loud. "Me too." He reached across the space between us, didn't touch me, just offered his hand. But less scared together than apart? I looked at his hand, scarred, shaking slightly, offering partnership, not rescue. Offering to face my demons with me if I'd face his with him. Two broken people who could maybe become whole by being broken together first. I unpacked the saddlebag. Didn't decide yet about going down, but decided not to run further up. That was enough for now. One decision at a time, one choice toward living, instead of just surviving. That night, I said his name. John, he said mine. Sarah. It was the first time I'd heard it spoken with kindness in months. The sound of my own name, not as accusation but as recognition, nearly broke me. We slept on opposite sides of the cabin, but the distance felt different now. Not a wall, just space we were choosing to close slowly, together. I woke on a clear April morning knowing. The valley was visible all the way down, mountains sharp against blue sky. I'd made my decision in sleep. Or maybe I'd been making it for months. One log at a time. I was going back. Not because I was brave. Because I was tired of shame writing my story. Tired of letting their lies be the last word on who Sarah Coleman was. Tired of hiding from a life that was mine to claim. I told John over coffee, "I'm going down." He set down his cup, nodded once, started toward the horses. "You don't have to come." I followed him. "You don't owe me anything. Your ghosts are your own." He turned to look at me. "Maybe I need to stop running, too. Your demons are easier to face than mine. Practice." He started saddling his horse. "Besides, you'll need a witness. Someone who knows your truth." We rode down in silence, but it was different from the silence we'd started with. This silence was shared purpose, partnership. My hands shook on the reins. My heart hammered. Every switchback down brought the valley closer, brought the town closer, brought my past closer. John rode near enough I could feel his presence. Not leading, beside, parallel, equal. The town appeared below us. Same buildings, same streets. Like I'd never left. Like the last 6 months had been a dream I was waking from. My throat tightened. My vision blurred. I wanted to turn around, ride back up. Forget this insanity? "We can go back," John said quietly. "Your choice." But I'd already chosen. I'd chosen the moment I stopped packing to run further. I'd chosen when I told him my truth, and he'd stayed. I'd chosen every day I'd built walls instead of hiding behind them. We reached the main street at noon. The town fell silent. Heads turned. Whispers started. Sarah Coleman. Back. Risen from the dead. Or returned to hang. The widow they'd blamed. Walking down their street with a mountain man beside her. I dismounted. My legs shook, but held. I'd forgotten how many people a town contained. How many eyes, how much noise. Civilization felt too loud, too close. I understood John's running better now. The sheriff stepped out of his office, face older than I remembered. He looked at me like he'd seen a ghost. I didn't grovel, didn't beg, just stood in the street and told my truth. "I'm Sarah Coleman." My voice carried. "I fled 6 months ago because you blamed me for my husband's death. For a fire I didn't set. You had no proof. just grief and my bad timing. I was carrying a lamp from the store. That's all. Just Tom's lamp he'd forgotten. The sheriff opened his mouth. I kept talking. I had no money for a lawyer, no family to defend me. Just my word against a whole town's certainty. So I ran. Went to the high country, learned to survive. Learned I was stronger than I knew. I looked at the faces gathered now. Mrs. Henderson stood on the boardwalk, hand over her mouth. I'm here to tell you the truth. Whether you believe it or not, I didn't kill Tom. I loved him. You took that from me, my right to mourn my husband. But I'm taking it back now. John stood beside me. Hadn't spoken. Didn't need to. His presence said everything. She's not alone. You want to call her a liar? You'll have to convince both of us. The sheriff cleared his throat. Sarah, the fire was investigated after you left. Faulty wiring in the store. Old building. The inspector found it. We've known for months it was an accident. The words hit like a fist. They'd known. Had known for months. And I'd been up a mountain, hiding, carrying shame that wasn't mine. You could have looked for me. My voice shook now. Could have told me. We thought. He looked down. We assumed you wouldn't come back, that you were gone for good. We were wrong. I was wrong. I'm sorry. Mrs. Henderson stepped forward, tears on her face. Sarah, I started those whispers. My grief, I needed someone to blame. I was wrong. We all were. I'm so sorry. I looked at her, at the sheriff, at the town that had driven me away. I wanted to hate them. Part of me did. But mostly I was just tired. Tired of carrying anger along with shame. I don't forgive everyone, I said. You can't pretend this didn't happen. But I'm not hiding anymore. I'm Sarah Coleman. I was Tom's wife. I survived you. That's enough. I turned to leave. Someone called my name kindly this time. I looked back. The blacksmith, who'd been Tom's friend. Welcome home, Sarah? Not everyone echoed it, but enough did. Enough to matter. We rode out before sunset. Not running. Leaving by choice. I'd faced them. Told my truth. Reclaimed my name. That was enough. I didn't need their forgiveness. Just my own. John rode beside me. Silent. Strong. When we reached the tree line, I looked back one more time. The town was settling into evening. Smoke from chimneys, life continuing. They'd move on. So would I. Thank you, I told John, for riding with me. Thank you for letting me. He smiled, rare expression on that weathered face. For showing me it's possible to face things, to stop running. We rode up the mountain together. Home, to the cabin we'd built, to the life we'd made. To whatever came next. We returned to the mountain different than we'd left. Not hiding now. Living. We expanded the cabin through spring and summer, added a room, put in real windows with glass John traded for, built a door that opened smooth instead of sticking. Symbols of permanence. Of choosing to stay. Not having to. The traveling preacher came through in July. We'd been expecting him. Had asked him to come. In fact, we married on a Sunday morning with wildflowers and birdsong and promises neither of us had expected to make. Again. I wore a dress I'd made myself from fabric John had brought from town. He wore a clean shirt and the closest thing to nervousness I'd ever seen on his face. We spoke our vows standing in the meadow. Tom had once called the prettiest place on earth. He'd been right about the pretty wrong that it had to be lonely. I take you as my husband. The words felt right, true, earned through months of building trust, log by log, to face demons with, to build a life with, for as long as we both choose. John's voice was steady when he answered. I take you as my wife, to stand beside, to shoulder burdens with, for as long as we both choose. The preacher looked uncertain about our unconventional vows, but he married us anyway. Probably figured anyone who'd carved a life from these mountains had earned the right to speak their own. Promises. We started going to town monthly after that. Bought supplies, sold furs, existed as part of the world again. I was not the same Sarah who'd fled, but I was not afraid anymore either. The town nodded when we passed. Some apologized again. I accepted what felt genuine. Ignored the rest. Life settled into rhythms. John still had nightmares. I'd wake to him thrashing, lost in whatever battlefield his mind conjured. I'd hold him through them. Speak softly until he remembered where he was, who he was now. He still startled at sudden sounds. I learned to make noise before dropping firewood, before closing doors. I still had days where shame crept back, where I wondered if the town really believed my innocence or just stopped caring. On those days, John would sit with me, not trying to fix it, just present, solid, real. We were not fixed, just broken together, and somehow that was better than broken alone. I thought about the woman who'd fled with one cooking pot that October morning. She'd been desperate, terrified, certain she'd die up here. Part of me wanted to reach back through time and tell her it would be okay, that she'd survive, that she'd find more than survival. But I didn't regret her choices. She did what she had to do. Ran because staying meant dying. One way or another, found these mountains. Found safety long enough to remember she was more than what they'd accused her of being. Found John. He was chopping wood one September morning. I watched from the cabin doorway with coffee in hand. 2 cups now. Habit so deep, I didn't think about it. The sound of the axe was rhythmic, familiar, comforting. This was my life now. Our life. Built from nothing but determination and shared silence and the courage to stop running. Coffee's ready, I called. He set down the axe, smiled at me. We sat on the porch we'd built together, watching our valley wake up. The same valley I'd run to in terror. Now it was home. You thinking about town? He asked. He could read my silences now, as well as I could read his. About how far I've come. I sipped the coffee. Better than that first bitter pot I'd made. I'd learned sweetness was possible again. About how that scared woman with nothing became this. You were always this. He took my hand. Scarred palm against scarred palm. You just had to remember, maybe, or maybe I'd had to break completely to rebuild differently, stronger, truer. What I learned in those mountains, shame's lighter when shared, burdens divide when carried together. Sometimes you need to leave to find yourself, but you have to return to truly live. Healing doesn't require hiding forever, just safety while you mend. John gave me that safety. I gave it back to him. 2 broken people who became whole by first admitting they were broken. By choosing each other daily. By knowing what it cost to love and choosing it anyway. This was the life after. Not the one I'd planned when I was young and believed plans mattered. Not the one I'd imagined with Tom in those early years. This one was built on truth, on facing demons, on walking back down mountains to reclaim your name. It was better, harder, yes, earned instead of given, but better. I poured more coffee. Called John back from his work. We sat together in comfortable silence, watching morning light turn the peaks gold. Two refugees who'd stopped running. Two people who'd learned that the bravest thing isn't hiding from fear, it's facing it together. That, I thought, is the truest kind of healing there is. Not pretending you were never broken. Just finding someone willing to be broken alongside you, to build something new from the pieces, to choose living over surviving together.